Welcome, everyone, to the Daily Grind. My name is Kelly Johnson, your friendly and fun host. We are on episode 21, the very best one yet. We have a special guest on today, and without further ado, let me introduce you to him, Tyler Banh. So he's an instructional designer, former public educator teaching mathematics, on the board of directors for nonprofit UVSA Midwest, and fellow University of Wisconsin-Madison alum, go Badgers, whoop whoop, and lives and works in the Chicago area. Overall, great person to have on our show today. So welcome, Tyler. Woo!
Thank you, Kelly, for having me. I'm honored to be on your podcast. I've been following you and your work and your foundation for a while, and I'm just really flattered that you invited me to your podcast.
Yeah, I'm so pumped to have you on, Tyler. I think you have a great personality and unique background. And I think that fits in with a lot of our listeners that follow the Daily Grind. And yeah, let's just basically jump right into it. You want to tell our listeners who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Yep. My name is Tyler Banh. I am a first-generation Vietnamese American born to my parents, Kim and Trang, who immigrated from Vietnam. And I'm from Wisconsin. I was born in Janesville. I graduated from UW, go Badgers. That was in 2014. And then I lived and taught high school math in the Milwaukee area for 4 years. And now I'm working in business learning and development in downtown Chicago, and I've been at my role for 1 year.
Awesome. Wow. Very, very straightforward. I like it. Yeah, a fellow Wisconsinite too, which is awesome. What happened recently from your move to Wisconsin and coming to Chicago? When and how did you decide to switch careers from education now you currently do?
Yep. Having taught for 4 years, I can truly say that I loved teaching. It was very emotionally fulfilling. I felt proud to be a teacher. And then I would say towards my last 2 years, I kind of, my perception towards teaching and my feelings about myself and towards teaching changed in a negative way, and that wasn't necessarily anyone's fault. It was just coming to an understanding of what education was about and where it was headed. And by the end of it, I wanted to leave to save my mental health. That there is a lot of suffering that goes on in the public education system. And what I mean by that is that for myself and a lot of my peers, and probably yourself too, Kelly, and maybe a lot of our listeners, that we were successful academically in school, or we were successful athletically in school. And in our school system, those are the only types of students who are celebrated in the school. And the majority of students in our school systems are not celebrated in that way, and they're forced to go to school. So you can see the kind of issues that arise when students aren't recognized and they're not celebrated, and they're forced to be in this social for 5 days a week, 6 to 7 hours a day. And so by the end of it, I just felt like I was trying to escape, and I knew that as great of a teacher as my students thought that I was, I didn't feel like I could come and be the best version of myself every day anymore. And that's what led me to business learning and development. I was ready to try something new. I was ready to give myself a new challenge. And I decided to move to the big city because for myself, I've never seen myself as a big city person. I was born and grew up in Janesville, Wisconsin, lived in Madison, which is more of a college town than a big city. And even in the Milwaukee area, I lived in Waukesha, and that's suburban Milwaukee. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to just move to the big city. I'm young, and this is the time to do it.
Yeah, very, very well said. And lots of touch points, to be honest, in regards to, you were grinding in the education arena. And you mentioned before, and I think knowing, or I guess self-identifying, or pinpointing a specific time that you knew that you're giving your most out of it, but you've added the most value you could, I guess, in your situation to teaching, and finding eventually knowing this is the time time is now to switch. Yeah, the Janesville to Madison to Waukesha. I'm from Waukesha. I recognize your background. And then coming to the big city. Yeah, UW-Madison definitely is a campus town, but Chicago is something that's totally different. So yeah, both your job responsibilities have changed, and physically, like, was there challenges from your transition, relocating to another city, coming now you're kind of creating a new network, basically?
Hmm. Yeah, there was a huge challenge in trying to transition from public education to business learning and development. And I think that part of it was me being naive. I thought that a lot of skills that I learned as a teacher were easily able to transition to business world because like learning is learning, right? You know, there's all people want to learn, whether you're a child or you're an adult. There's a desire to learn. And there are differences in learning, but in general, like there are best practices that can be used for any learner. And so with that, I thought that it'd be pretty easy to get a job in the business world. You know, I have all the skills, and people are trying to train their employees and teach their employees things. I thought that it'd be an easy way to get a job, but it was not. I faced a lot of rejections, whether they were straight up rejections for my resume or whether they were not getting phone calls back. You know, every company that I interviewed with doubted my ability or hesitated to bring on a teacher. And the reason, and I don't blame them for that because, you know, as a business, oftentimes businesses are trying to mitigate risk. And it was, for their situation, it's like, why bring on a former public educator when you can bring on an instructional designer who has a degree in instructional design, or bring on someone who already has a business acumen? So framing it like that, like I definitely understood where businesses were coming from, but it was very challenging to get all of those rejections.
Yeah, definitely going from even me getting a job, just coming, I don't have an education working background, but just even the business setting, when you're seeking for a new job or applying and going through the interview process and you get the tons of no's, it does, like, you have to stay positive and optimistic and just continue to push forward. And like you did, and congrats on your first a year under your belt already in instructional design. Lots of great things, and you are very intelligent and have just looking at your resume, your background, being on the dean's list and number of scholarships, and just being very well-rounded. And there's no reason why someone can hire you with having different experiences from an external perspective. I think I think the trend is too, just having, not just having, if you're switching jobs or if you're transitioning to a new industry, having different experiences, and that's just not academically only academics or only in one industry. You can tell a story, your own brand personal story. And I think with our past episode with Taylor Morrison on her switching to be in entrepreneurship business, I think she even said it too, like, it's how you tell your story and the experiences you've had and how to position yourself in the best way possible. Listeners out there, do you have any best practices for those people that are in the process of transitioning careers or even transitioning industries or things like that?
Yeah, I think that one thing that you mentioned that I agree with Kelly is how a lot of it is about mindset. Because you're constantly facing rejection, how you respond to that and push forward is going to be indicator of how long you're going to last or whether you pull through. And for myself, I think that I always had to be learning because that's something that I felt was beneficial to my experience as a teacher. Even in my role now, I'm constantly learning. And in that time period between jobs, if you're a person who's applying for jobs, keep active, you know, use learning resources available online, continue reading, practice interview skills, anything that you can that moves you forward. And even the smallest victories are going to help you overcome the little setbacks that you face. So I think a lot of it is momentum. The more that you read about yourself or read about what's out there, the more that you learn about yourself and feel comfortable sharing your story. That when the time comes and you get the right opportunity, that you're gonna pull through and succeed in that way.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Just staying active and just being able to share your story and become comfortable in telling that story. There's various resources out there to continue read, be up to date on news, practicing different SKUs. There's a lot of different organizations. Tell our listeners too, Tyler, on your volunteer experience and how that has helped you career-wise and personal-wise.
Yeah. So I have been involved with a nonprofit organization called Vietnamese Students Association of the Midwest, or UVSA Midwest for short. And I've been involved with that organization since my sophomore year of college. So, that's like going back 8 or 9 years, I think. And what I've gained the most from that is the leadership skills that are involved in helping manage a team, building relationships, building camaraderie, establishing goals and meeting those goals together as a team. And with that experience, I just feel like it's been able to carry into every aspect of my personal and professional life. Those outside experiences, they just make me a more well-rounded person. So that's what I'm really grateful for about USA Midwest.
That's really cool. And you came involved in it in college and you're still doing it outside of college, which is great. I've heard many great things about that organization. I don't know if I personally attended any of the conferences or different meetings, but I've heard from you and your brother Tyson. So I guess long story short, Tyler and I have connected, not just because we're Badgers, but just a family. I know your family. I know your family.
Yep.
So it's all about that's even from college too, all from networking and just being open and being to put yourself out in uncomfortable positions. I know from the past, or even me before college, I wasn't super social. It's like you're exposed to new different things and you want to keep on building upon yourself. Here we are today. So things happen for a reason, and this is a great conversation we're having. Everything, lots of great stories. Do you want to talk about too, Tyler? Any with your current role at UVSA, any things that's currently on your radar right now, or it's not just Wisconsin or Illinois based? It's Midwest, so a lot of people involved in the organization, right?
Yep. Our organization stands in membership from all over the Midwest, like from Minnesota to Kentucky, Ohio, Kansas, every corner of the Midwest, essentially. And coming up for us in the spring, we have our annual Vietnamese Interacting as One conference, which pulls over 400 plus attendees from local DSAs on college campuses and young professionals around the Midwest. So we're really in the deep end of planning for that event and trying to make sure that it runs smoothly. Yeah, and then being on the board of directors side, making sure that everything that we're doing is aligned to our constitution and our vision, and of course trying to keep our nonprofit afloat in the books, being financially secure, trying to raise money and get donations for our philanthropy, all that sort of stuff that goes behind the scenes.
That's just great. Lots of things, and you definitely gain a lot of different skills being involved in such a well recognizable organization. Have you visited Madison recently for UVSA, or just in general back on campus?
Yep, I was actually back on campus last weekend for a social event, but it wasn't university affiliated at all. But I was back last weekend to walk around campus a little bit and go through it. And man, it just brings back a lot of memories from that time. UVSA Midwest hosts about 3 events every year. and sometimes those events will come back to Madison. I'm not sure of the next one that's coming back to Madison, but I'm sure it's on the radar somewhere. Our next event is at the University of Michigan.
Wow, cool. That's great. Really cool that you're involved in that outside of your current job and everything. Do you have, I mean, you've been a year at your current role. Can you give us a picture or paint us a picture of your daily grind that you do on a regular basis?
Yep, so working as an instructional designer at my company, I work for an advertising company, and on a daily basis, my primary task is to manage our learning management system, LMS for short. Our learning management system hosts all the content that our employees use for training and learning. And so with that, I'm in the LMS every day, either like creating or maintaining courses, auditing, or reporting user activity and troubleshooting general user issues. And then on top of that, I also work with subject matter experts to develop the trainings for our advertising account teams. And so that's kind of what I do on a daily and a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned like trainings, and when you first started your role, did you have any training on yourself or onboarding process in regards to what business learning and development, or did you gain that skill set as you moved on within your career, or did you use other resources like online classes or coworkers, or how are you able to do your job today? I don't know. I'm just curious.
Yep. Yep. When I first joined, I had an idea of what the role entailed, just simply going through the interview process, reading about the job description, and what my manager had to say about the position. So that gave me an idea. But in terms of having like a clear vision of what I was going to do every day as an instructional designer, I really didn't know. And the reason I didn't know is because prior to then, I'd never heard of what an instructional design was, and had never been in a business role, so I didn't even know like what the business world was like. I remember my first day walking into the office to start my position, and my first thought was, "Holy crap! It is so quiet in here. It's like dead silent. Everyone's just working on their computers instead of like hearing kids." Talk in the hallways and whatnot. But yeah, I did utilize outside learning for gaining skill sets for this position. And I got to make a quick plug for LinkedIn Learning. I used LinkedIn Learning when I had a LinkedIn Premium membership during my job search. I highly recommend LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Premium is about $30 a month. You can get a 2-month membership for free as a trial. But you have the access to this entire library of like endless topics, and specifically for myself, I knew that I had to learn software skills. There were certain programs that were industry standards that I did not have the skill set for, and I learned those skill sets through LinkedIn Learning. And fast forward to this day, our company is about 7,000 people. I'm not going to say like I'm the only person in the world who knows what I do, but in my company of 7,000 people, I'm the only person who knows what to do with these programs. So that's pretty crazy to me.
Yeah, that's huge. Big stats out there. Oh wow, you are one MVP at your current company. That's really great. And yeah, you mentioned LinkedIn, their services and programs to offer. Never used that resource before, but I've heard of it. Do you think people nowadays, like in their current roles or just in various industries in business, do you think they use those resources? And do you think that it sounds like you've had a success story in regards to using that and those courses? Do you think that's a trend nowadays? And do you see people using those resources in the future more?
So I would say for my company, every person in my company gets free access to LinkedIn Learning. One trend that I see is that it's often underutilized, And, that's for a variety of reasons. Usually it's because of a lack of time on the job, but it's really underutilized because I think that one thing that is like imperative for any person in any position is to learn more, that there's always something in your field or even out of your field that you could be learning, whether it's technical skills, whether it's soft skills like communication or presentation, that there are ways that we should actively, intentionally improve ourselves. And so I'm a strong advocate for LinkedIn Learning because I know how well it's worked for me when I was job searching. But even now on my job, like I've learned three different like e-learning course publishing programs because of LinkedIn Learning. It's like it's a resource that's out there. It's high quality training content and learning content that I just really have a lot of praise for what it's been able to do for me. And I if I would say for anyone listening, if you've got the $30 on hand per month to access LinkedIn Learning, absolutely do it. Like just the learning that's like at your fingertips. There's so much potential to learn, and there's just so much out there.
Yeah, and you always want to better yourself too. I'm definitely gonna look into LinkedIn Learning. Obviously, since I have a LinkedIn profile, and it's a pretty reasonable price compared to all those subscription programs out there that you can use for entertainment or how else. Basically, going just on that learning and bettering yourself topic, do you have other recommendations for different mediums for listeners out there to use to better themselves, or just business related topics like podcasts, books, people that you follow, things of that?
Yep, I had a long list, so I'll try to narrow it down. What's been most influential in my development as like a real adult, I'll say, is learning about emotional intelligence. And I really enjoy the work that Travis Bradberry and Gene Greaves, they're authors and speakers, and they run a emotional intelligence-based company. But emotional intelligence is about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And for me to learn about the idea of emotional intelligence and be able to practice some of the strategies that are involved in it, it's just made my life a lot better. Like I've been able to be more productive as a person. I've been able to strengthen my relationships with other people. Yeah, it's huge. Like if you've never heard of emotional intelligence, look up the Emotional Intelligence Quick Book or the longer version, Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradberry and Gene Greaves. Yeah, those books like set me on a path of self-improvement that just left me desiring more, and I've gone into like a whole bunch of other books and like other ideas. So like I'm really big into communication, introspection, relationships, and relationship building. Like there's just a long list, and if I had to plug one thing, like I would just say emotional intelligence for sure.
Yeah, that's really great. We'll put that in the show notes for sure in regards to books to read. How about like podcasts or either to or even outside events? Is there? I would assume there's. Have you attended in the past or more recently, like different like community events or involvement events or different organizations people could get involved in, possibly on that level?
Yep, I would say outside of work, my involvement with my local community is through UVSA Midwest, and with that, I've like given workshops on like on like a multitude of ideas, but really just working with college-age students and helping them with their own leadership goals is kind of my involvement outside of work and in my personal life right now.
How do you balance that with your schedule and just staying organized with your community involvement and then your busy work schedule, and then also helping with other young professionals or college students?
Yeah, I would say that To balance like a busy schedule is it requires priorities, and I think that's a general statement, but it can't be stated enough that I have to be able to prioritize my time. So oftentimes I'll have a schedule that tells me what I need to do every single day, and I'll look at my schedule every day to see if there's any events that day or any events that are coming up, and then being able to manage all, I think that it's important that I give myself the time that I need to recharge because there's a lot of things in life on a daily basis that wear people down and like wear myself down. So to be able to afford myself time so that I can, rest, relax, recharge myself, that's very important for me too. So I'm very conscious about not spreading myself too thin and really taking on what I feel I'll be able to handle and do to the best of my ability.
Yeah, I think you made really great points there, Tyler. You can't always say yes to everything or every single situation. You have to find that balance and prioritize. I'd say too. I use that on a daily basis, both in work and outside of work. Just being able to see what's things I need to get done for the day or for the week, and then what's on my radar to come down the road. Do you have to finding that work life balance, transitioning careers? Do you see it's more easier to find that work life balance in business versus education?
Yep, for sure. Like something that I say to like everyone I talk to when it comes to transitioning is that after having been a high school math teacher for 4 years, that any job I have after teaching will be easy because the way that and the reason that I say that is that it's just so different. Like when you're standing in front of 25 to 30 kids who are giving you immediate feedback, and sometimes that feedback is like obnoxious or not said appropriately. That's very different than sitting in the office and working with adults who should be more mature. And thankfully, I've never had any issues with my colleagues. But it's just very different, and that difference to me is striking. My job is so easy compared to teaching, and with that this work-life balance. Like I don't have to bring any work home. Like I don't even check my work email outside of work, and I'm going to cross my fingers that stays the same forever. But when I was a teacher, I would have to teach. I would have meetings after school. I would come home. I would have to grade homework or grade tests. And then on the weekends, I'd have to continue lesson planning for the next week. And it's like now working in business and development, like I don't bring work home. I definitely don't work on the weekends at all. I rarely think about work outside of work. And so that has been a big difference for me in terms of work-life balance. And it's for the better. Like I really enjoy my work-life balance now. I don't feel like I'm being burnt out from my position.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, those are really good points, and I think you mentioned earlier just having you found that this is something that fits your personality better, and also healthier for your well-being as well. I think that's an important thing because I think nowadays too people are trying to work all the time or just not in the right job, and they don't want to switch jobs and they feel like change is tough and people don't like change. And I think when you make the right decisions, have the list of pros and cons, and you know what's the better option for you, you just gotta make that jump and go 100% towards it, which you did, which is awesome. And I think that's a really great story to tell. And I think people out there need to know that don't be afraid of change and do what's right for your own situation because everyone is different.
Yeah, and I think, speaking to what you're saying about change and how change is difficult and it's uncomfortable, that oftentimes it's much easier said than done because as humans, we feel vulnerable when we have to change or feel vulnerable when we know there's a possibility of failing that, if I have to go all the way back from our conversation, that mindset is such a huge component to that the way that you frame your experience and then think about yourself and like love yourself through this change is really going to be the indicator about whether you like pass through this time of difficulty and change, or whether it becomes a worse experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even too, if it's just a job transition, you still have like you still can keep your friends. You can still keep in touch with people, your support group, basically family, friends, past colleagues. You're involved in UVSA, so that didn't really like just because you transition doesn't mean you cut off all ties with people. It's very easy to connect nowadays too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, just speaking on the connection part, is that that's another thing that I would say I have to prioritize for myself. Is that with work and social life and nonprofit work, that and with my phone and my laptop easily accessible, that sometimes there's a way of being over connected, and I'm conscious about not over connecting and making sure that I have time for myself, because the daily grind, like only you know what you do every single day, and all the trials and tribulations that you go through, and other people don't see that, and that's like nothing against them. It's just saying that like you have to prioritize yourself, because only you truly know what your experience is like. And so to me, that's what like the daily grind is like. Is that like you have a full vision of who you are, and you have this vision of what you need to do on a daily basis, and you're the one who's supposed to take the primary responsibility of making sure that everything that needs to be done gets done. And so if that means that you have to tune out like other distractions, or sometimes tune out other people, then that is what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Very well said. Talking about the daily grind and everything. So now you're in Chicago. So Chicago wise, have you been able to? I mean, we're getting closer to the holidays and everything. Get a little taste of Chicago. Are you still loyal to the Wisconsin sports, or have you switched over to Chicago sports, or?
I will forever be loyal to my Wisconsin sports teams, the Badgers, Packers, the Bucks, the Brewers. I love being a Packers fan in Chicago because we always beat the Bears, and it feels good to wear my Aaron Rodgers jersey walking around the city, knowing that people are giving me ugly stares for it, but I know they're just being salty.
No, yeah, 100% totally agree. Wisconsin all the way. I do cheer for the Blackhawks because we don't have a hockey team, but outside of that, 100% Wisconsin. It felt great this past weekend with Packers beating the Bears. Just coming into work in the office, and everyone's not so happy about that.
Yeah, I would say for the Blackhawks, I've never been too interested in hockey, so I've never had to decide whether I would like the Blackhawks or not. But I find it hard for me to imagine that I would cheer for any Chicago sports teams.
Mm-hmm. It's cool though that we have such a great like border battle, and yeah. Right now we're coming up to. I mean, Chicago with the World Series was really great in 2016, but now we're actually Brewers are starting to pick up, and same too with basketball. Milwaukee Bucks are killing it. Packers are looking well. Hopefully, getting a playoff bye, depending on how we do next Monday. So things are going well in Wisconsin for sports. But yeah, it's always friendly competition in the office or people around here. Have you been able to explore Chicago outside of work so far since moving here?
Yep, so I live in Lakeview East on the north side, and I love our neighborhood of Lakeview East. I think that living in Chicago gives you views you can't get anywhere in the Midwest, like, down by the river, the lake shore, going on any of the high-rise buildings, even my work building, like I get a good view of the city. From every direction that you look at into the loop or the downtown area, you get a different do, and it's just so beautiful. And I think that there's so much to do in Chicago, regardless of what season it is. And so for the winter season, I'm looking forward to going to the Christkindl Market this weekend. Yeah, seeing the holiday train on the CTA is always a pleasant surprise. Things like that. Yeah, I love Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chicago's been treating me well so far too. You touched on it. Lots of events, lots of things going on in such a big city, and lots of different interests too. So depending on whatever hobby you're interested in, or whatever community group, or different sports, there's always stuff going on. There's a good amount. If you're from Wisconsin, there's a good amount of Wisconsin bars to check out. Yeah, there's always it brings a lot of people into the city, and lots of people visiting as well. Pretty big city to fly into or to drive in. To extent public transportation's pretty straightforward. Lots of positive things for living in a big city. Transitioning to what's up to come on your daily grind. So yeah, Tyler, do you want to share with our listeners what's on your radar in the coming weeks?
Yep. So in the upcoming weeks, in terms of work, I'm off for the next 2 weeks, which is going to be a nice time to recharge and maybe pick up some new skills on LinkedIn Learning. In terms of my own personal life, staying fit, and especially through the holiday season, I try to work out about 4 to 5 times a week. So that's got to keep moving for me. For UVSA Midwest, our event planning is picking up. We're in the middle of planning for our huge conference in March, and just taking it day by day, making sure that I get enough rest, that I prioritize my events on a daily basis, and yeah, that's my daily grind in these next few weeks.
Awesome, that's great to hear. Yeah, with the holidays coming up, super busy. Also, do you want to provide our listeners with a word of the day, something to motivate them after this podcast?
My word of the day, or my message of the day, is to be kind to yourself. I think that a lot of times with today's media and social media and how we have access to all this imagery of other people, that we find ourselves comparing ourselves to other people, and it's unhealthy, and we should not try to make ourselves like other people or wish to be the people. But again, it's like one of those things that's easier said than done, that we're very harsh. People are very harsh on themselves. So my message is to just be kind to yourself, give yourself love, be proud of who you are, continue to strive to be a better person. Like you can never achieve perfection, but you can work every day to make yourself a better person, and part of that is being kind to yourself. If you wouldn't say bad things about your friends or your family members, then there's no reason that you should be saying bad things about yourself. Is kind of my perspective on it.
That's great. That's definitely a great word of the day for this time of the year, as well as what we've all discussed so far on this podcast in regards to setting your schedule to prioritize, but then finding that time to recharge. If you're grinding on a daily grind every day, in and out, able to find that time to recharge, relax, do things that are make a positive impact on yourself or to influence others positively, your support group, and all that fun stuff. So really great. We'll put that quote in the show notes for sure. Tyler, how can listeners reach out to you after the podcast?
Yeah, listeners can reach out to me either on LinkedIn, so it's just my first name and last name, Tyler Banh. They can reach out to me on my email, which is also on my LinkedIn page, or they can follow me on Twitter. My handle is Mr._Tyler Bond.
Great. Again, we'll put his contact info in the show notes for today's episode. Thank you, Tyler, for joining me on the podcast. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in today's episode. When it comes to sharing my story with you and ways to follow the daily grind, our website is www.kjfwi.org/thedailygrind, all hyphenated. Listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Check out all the episodes and leave a review. Questions and comments, hit me up on Twitter. Tweet at KellyJLefty. And finally, Instagram, DM me at the same handle as well.
Yeah, and thank you, Kelly, for inviting me to speak on the Daily Grind podcast, and I'm really looking forward to everything that you continue to do with your foundation and all of your accomplishments to come.
Oh, thank you so much, Tyler, for the kind words. Super appreciate it. Daily Grind listeners, that's it for today, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much.
Like striving for change or like striving to like better yourself. Like those are simple statements, but they go a long way, you know.
Yeah, I think so too. I try to keep the message like pretty simple or just like bite-sized pieces to people because sometimes, like nowadays, like you even mentioned too on the word of the day, like there's so much like content getting thrown at people or people reading online, and it's just so much to sift through. And just trying to keep a simple message, and I think just consistency is like key. Having like people like yourself on that can like tell like real life examples.
Every person goes through their own daily grind. You know, like we see all the success on TV and like in media, and we don't often see the work that gets done on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, every person that you talk to or you meet is going through their own daily grind and probably fighting some battle that you don't know about. So that's what the daily grind is like, a really good avenue for people to get an insight into like how people's lives might be the same or how their lives might be a little bit different, but the message still remains the same, that every person has their own daily grind.